I'm quite excited about today's unboxing and to share this with you. First, gold of the year, and first, big silver tetradrachma. Alright, what do we have here apart from this? Quite a varied mix. We've got early Roman Imperial, late Imperial as well. We've got Parthian, Byzantine, and Greek. This time I'll do it in reverse chronological order. So let's begin with the latest coin and make our way to the earliest. And we start with a Byzantine gold coin. Byzantines are probably one of the most affordable ways of collecting ancient gold. Although, well, affordable is a rather relative term, especially with the rise in the price of gold recently, which seems to have some effect on these lower-end coins of the ancient gold market, which cost a little bit closer to the actual spot price of the metal. As a result, I had to let go of a few coins that didn't want anymore to fit this in my budget. So what do we have here? A semisis, or half a solidus, of Emperor Justinian the Great. So this was struck sometime between 527 and 552 AD, of course at the capital of Constantinople. You probably know Emperor Justinian. Very long reign. He attempted to reconquer the Western Roman Empire with his great general, a man called Belisarius. He even managed to capture Rome at a point, and actually he managed to capture places as far away from Byzantium as North Africa and eastern Spain. However, the merits of his conquest are questionable. His campaign destroyed the Italian peninsula, and the sheer cost of the campaign was staggering. He emptied the imperial coffers of a gold that would have been sorely missed by the following emperors. Now, the semisis is one of 3 gold coins issued during the earlier years of the Byzantine Empire. They had the full solidus at around 4.4 grams of gold. This, the semisis, half a solidus, so around 2.2 grams, and the tiny little tremisis, a third of a solidus, of around 1.5 grams. The solidus and the tremisis are quite easy to find. The semisis, however, seems to be a bit scarcer. It isn't rare by any means, but it isn't as common, especially those struck in the 5th and 6th centuries. These are common. Later on, they get rarer and rarer. So, I'm happy to get this coin and finally have all 3 early Byzantine gold denominations. And now I have no excuse not to make a video on early Byzantine gold. So on the obverse we have the side portrait of Justinian, very similar in style to portraits of the late Western Empire. That's a visual feature of the tremisis and the semisis, while the solidus typically has a facing portrait. And we also have, completing the design, some legends in Latin which read Dominus Noster, our Lord, Justinianus, Justinian, Perpetuus Augustus, our eternal emperor. On the reverse we have a victory sitting on a rock, drawing a series of stars on a shield. Super interesting to see a pagan image at a time the empire was already deeply Christian, but still, the choice of the victory is probably more of a cultural symbol of imperial might rather than any Christian propaganda. The engraver, however, had the sensibility of adding a staurogram, an early Christian symbol, to the right of the design, just to make sure it passed the right message that it was still a Christian coin. On the legends, it reads Victoria Augustoris, to the victory of our emperors, and at the very bottom, as with all gold coins, COMOB, the abbreviation COMOB, which means Comitatensis Obrisiacum, sort of like a seal of guarantee that this gold came from the imperial mint and was of high quality. I'm so happy with this little coin. I suspect it will be in the top 10 video for this year. Alright, what do we have next? Let's go to the 4th century, around the year 302 AD, the time of the Tetrarchy and their comprehensive monetary reform created by Diocletian. Well, it wasn't just a monetary reform. There were very few things in how the empire was run that Diocletian did not change, and coinage was a big part of it. because after the crisis of the 3rd century, the Roman money was completely destroyed by widespread inflation, so they had to sort of like put it back on its feet. And one of the new coins created by the Tetrarchy was this one, the Argenteus, a coin of around 3.4 grams and a very respectable 90% silver content. Something that hadn't been seen since, I don't know, like the time of Nero, like 200 years before that. Anyways, this Argenteus in particular was issued for Diocletian's main colleague, Maximianus, and it was meant to be a bridge. This coin was meant to be a bridge between the low-value denominations, some made out of copper, some with a 5% silver-copper alloy mix, and on the other hand, the super prestigious aureus, which was only really meant for the incredibly wealthy or those seeking to store wealth in the most compact form. The gold one was a coin just for savings and for the elite, while a common person could realistically handle an Argenteus here and there. Not a lot of Argenteus survive to our days, making these somewhat rare and surprisingly expensive because of the face value attributed to these coins. You see, one Argenteus could be exchanged for something like 4 or 5 of the larger copper-silver mixed coins. But if you were to compare the actual fine silver content in these lower value coins compared with one Argenteus, if you were compared them in equal denominational value, there wasn't nearly as much silver in the group of coins compared to the Argenteus. There was more in the Argenteus. So people just hoarded the coin or just melted them down for its silver. There's some indication that it was exported a lot as well, and they just kept using the lower value coins. So that's why very few of these have survived, while the other, which was called the numus, is super abundant and one of the most affordable and best value for money late Roman coins you can buy. So what do we have here? On the obverse, we have the face of Maximianus, made in relatively high relief, but in unrealistic style, which is typical for the time. You can only tell each emperor apart really by reading the legends, which in this case read Maximianus Augustus, very straight to the point. Now there's an interesting thing about this obverse. There are quite a few lines around the portrait and on the fields which seem to indicate that the die for this coin had some very bad cracks in it. I wonder what on earth happened to it. Like, if the die was worn down, was very much used, the portrait itself would have been poorly imprinted, it would have looked fuzzy. But the portrait here, it looks sharp, it looks fresh. We can see all of the details on the hair, the beard, the laurel crown. Some other examples I've seen online also seem to have this issue, these little lines. So there was definitely something going on with the metal the die was made out of. You know, not resisting well the stresses of the striking process. So, I don't know, it might be considered a flaw for many. It definitely made this coin a little bit cheaper than perfect examples, but I think it gives it a little bit of a uniqueness and, well, it makes it more affordable, a coin that typically is a little bit too expensive. And on the reverse, we have an image of the 4 tetrarchs, all dressed in military attire with their capes and everything, sacrificing together in front of an altar. On the background, we see the walls of a castrum, the military camp. Very militaristic message, which made sense since they were the ones to put an end to the civil wars of the 3rd century crisis, and they enforced this peace and this stability with military strength. Around the legends, we have Concordia Militum, so the concord of the armies, which they certainly bought using coins of good silver like this, because I'm pretty sure the soldiers used to being paid with horrible coins would have been delighted to be paid with high quality silver once again, rather than these crappy coins everyone was used to. Next, we've got a denarius of Emperor Hadrian. If you are like me and you enjoy a variety of portraits in your collection, Hadrian is an excellent choice. You have portraits with and without the laurel crown on his head, Some portraits only show his head down to his neck, while others actually show what he's wearing, like his draperies or a cuirass. There are some rare varieties issued in the eastern parts of the empire, and the style on how he is portrayed changes quite a lot throughout his reign as well, with his earliest coins showing a relatively young-looking man, although Hadrian was in his early 40s when he became emperor. And later issues show, it's kind of funny, they show like a chubby Hadrian with a very well-kept short beard, probably meant to hide some sort of skin condition, or maybe hide a little double chin he was developing for indulging in tasty treats. What we have here is a coin from around the year 129, so roughly the middle of his reign. And we have a mature, very dignified portrait of Hadrian, confidently looking to the right, without a laurel crown and wearing his cloak over his battle cuirass. Hadrian is for me, is one of the high points in coin portraiture. The majority of his coins are made consistently with very good artistic quality. The legends in this example are also pretty straightforward. Hadrianus Augustus. And I particularly enjoy when they do this. They spell the full words of the legends, like in its full length, rather than filling the design with little abbreviations. The very earliest coins of Hadrian, for example, continue a tradition of his predecessor, Trajan, who liked to spell out every single one of his titles on the coins, resulting in this gigantic string of abbreviations that I find visually polluting on the coin. But in this case, it looks quite clean. I like it. On the reverse, we have Clementia, the goddess of clemency, holding a patera to make liquid offerings to the gods. Now, Hadrian's claim to be a very forgiving and magnanimous leader is a bit ironic. If you dig into his history and you consider he condemned 4 senators to death on trumped-up charges for being his political adversaries and questioning his legitimacy to become emperor, you see that it isn't very straightforward, this claim. And of course, let's not forget the very violent suppression of the Bar Kokhba revolt in Judea, just a few years after this coin was made. But hey, that's one of the advantages of being the emperor. You get to pick the narrative you want to be seen on the coins. Anyways, lovely denarius from a very important Roman emperor. And by the way, are you considering buying an ancient coin, but you don't know if the price is right, or if it looks authentic or not, or any other questions you might have on how to grow your collection, and you just don't have the time to learn it yourself? If that's the case, you should consider joining my Patreon. At Tier 4, I am offering my personal opinion on one coin per month, any coin you need the help with. You also get a whole series of other perks, and you will be helping the channel. Have a look at the video description if you're interested. Alright, back to our unboxing. Next, we have a Parthian drachma. The Parthians were one of the great enemies of Rome, from the late Republican period until the early 3rd century AD, and they produced a great number of these lovely silver drachma, which typically feature on the obverse a portrait of the king, and just a portrait without legends. Like this one, which was issued under Phraates IV between 37 and 2 BC. This was a king with a very interesting history, very closely tied to the Romans. He managed to beat back an invasion attempt from none other than Mark Antony. He struck a deal with Octavian to return the Roman legionnaire standards lost by Crassus in 53 BC, and this cool story, he was gifted an Italian slave girl by Octavian, and apparently she was so pretty and so charming that Phraates became completely enamored with her. She became his favorite, and eventually his queen, from a slave to a queen. Her name was Musa, and she tried to install her sons with Phraates as the new kings of Parthia. One could wonder if she wasn't a spy presented as a gift all of that time, because when her plan failed and she had to flee back to Rome with her sons, they were received and taken care of by Octavian. On the reverse, the vast majority of these have a little Parthian archer sitting right at the center. So he's sitting on a rock inspecting his bow. And around him, we have a series of legends, sometimes in Greek and later in garbled legends, as the engravers forgot how to read and write in Greek, the legend that was used on these coins. A lovely little piece of Eastern numismatics that I need to discuss more in this channel. And finally, this massive Seleucid tetradrachma, struck between 109 and 96 BC by one of the last Seleucid kings, Antiochus VIII. Antiochus was a bit of a party animal. His lavish banquets and excessive spending became famous, well, I would say infamous, in the political circles of the Mediterranean because, well, his kingdom was collapsing. The Seleucids were once the largest successor states of Alexander, and now here he was, reigning over a territory not much larger than the city of Antioch and a few hundred miles around it, and maybe a small portion of Phoenicia to the south, basically a rump state. And yet, there he was spending the little tax revenue he had on lavish feasts. And I like how this late portrait of Antiochus matches this decadent story. He looks ugly with a big hooked nose, a lazy expression, some fat accumulating under his chin, and of course the portrait itself, although still pretty good looking artistically, it's a far cry from the wonderful portraiture of earlier kings. Still, the coin for me is gorgeous. Excellent metal quality, this darker toning with golden accents, which I don't know if the camera is able to capture. It's just a wonderful coin to have in hand. The Seleucids really produced amazing coins up to the very end of their history. And on the reverse, we have an image of a seated Zeus, sitting on his throne, holding a small Nike, a small victory, which was crowning him. The reverse reads, Basileus Antiochos Epiphanos, or of King Antiochus the Illustrious. And around the entire design, we have this nice border made out of olive leaves, so it's more like a wreath. And if we inspect it in detail, apart from the leaves, we can even see some tiny little olives in there. Beautiful little thing. Well, not little thing, it's actually quite a big coin. And there we have it. Super mixed unboxing of very different types of coins. Let me know in the comment section down below which coins you like the most and what you have been adding to your collection. And I'll see you soon. Let me give a special thank you to all of my amazing channel members and Patreons for their generous support. This channel would not be the same without your help. And if you would like to be part of this list, have early access to my videos when they are uploaded to YouTube, and a series of other perks, make sure to check out my Patreon page and my members tab on YouTube. Thank you very much.